2025 has been jam-packed with a lot of games so far into the year, and in this video I wanted to take a moment and go through some of these games that has released in this year so far. I do want to go through them in a kind of overview way, listing off some of the things that these games went through up to launch, as well as some points of recognition that I think are important for these games as to the development side of it, maybe make a bit of a nuance to it. But before this video starts, I do want to take a moment and tell all of you watching that I'm hoping to create more of these kind of videos. I am hoping to create different kind of videos, review sites videos, other types of videos, going through some of the major things happening in the gaming industry. And I think that's it. Anyway, let's get on with the video. Now, there is no 2025 without talking about Assassin's Creed Shadows. This game was a massive game originally slated to be released in mid-November 2024, but as of the announcement, this game received a lot of blowback and a lot of talk about it circulating, specifically some of its characters, and mainly Yasuke. This character I'm not going to dive deep into, as I am not an expert in history and specifically the Japanese history. Whether or not he was a samurai is not topic of this video, but I do want to take a look at how the game has been doing up until its release and as well as later during the release of it. As of recording this game have passed 5 million players as of July, and I want to go through a article written about the game from IGN. As I mentioned, as of July, this game has passed 5 million unique players. Now, it's important to note that they don't mention sales. They mention that it's past 5 million unique players, and this game is available on different sources like the Ubisoft Plus subscription, as well as you can buy it from the standard sales consoles and PC. So now this doesn't take into account the sales that it has, but rather how many players have played it or booted it up. Now, the CEO of Ubisoft, Yves Guillemot, says that the first quarter has seen a mixed results, but he also states that this is also because of Rainbow Six Siege, which underperformed, while Assassin's Creed are in line with expectations. Now, what in line with expectation means is difficult to say as of this moment. Now, this article doesn't go into details about what happened specifically with the Rainbow Six Siege launched. It does say that it had some troubling few months after the release, as well as the player spending. But as of the article in terms of Assassin's Creed, it does say that delivered on its expectations with more than 5 million unique players since its launch. So what we can tell from this is that Assassin's Creed are doing well, considering it is a massive franchise. Of course, a lot of games released from it, so the community around it is very solid and very supportive of it. This also is in line with a lot of blowback that it got. From what I could tell, is mainly from the outside community of Assassin's Creed. As of the blowback, this is a article from Polygon. Without getting too much into it, I do wanted to talk about some of the other kinds of blowback that it got instead of focusing solely on Yasuke, the character, because if you don't know, Pure Arts, a company that has made a lot of designs and statues, specifically Assassin's Creed, in collaboration with Ubisoft, they also wanted to release a statue for this game. Now, this statue featured a very sensitive topic for the Japanese. Mainly it featured a torii gate, which is a piece of architecture in the Japanese history. Here it is. This was the bundle that they wanted to release, and as is presented here, the torii gate is half destroyed. Now, this got a lot of blowback and a lot of calls for it to be taken down, because a lot of the community said that it resembled a specific historical construction, namely the Sano Shrine, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, I am not Japanese, but it is situated in Nagasaki, which was half destroyed by an atomic bomb from the United States back in 1945. And understandably so, the Japanese voiced their opinions about it, and the creators of Pure Arts also released a statement on Twitter. They had this to say: "We recently released an insensitive design. We appreciate and have learned from the concerns brought to our attention, and we apologize for the harm this caused. After reading and processing the feedback, we have immediately returned to the drawing board and are currently reworking the design of Collector's Assassin's Creed Shadows, Yasuke, and Naui." Now, it's important to note that while this happened after it was revealed that they wanted to do this collaboration with Ubisoft, and after their image was initially released, you do wonder how they didn't think of this, how they should have contacted maybe some of the expert on history in Japan for any insensitive topics. While it still is a while back, it is understandably that they haven't forgotten the history that happened, but the question is, why didn't they do enough research as to the inclusion of this Torigate? Now, of course, you can speculate as to what really went down with the lack of research or whatever it was that led up to this release, especially because this isn't the only bundle that they have released in collaboration with Ubisoft, and this is just a page from their own store, and they have done a lot of collaborations with, for example, Ghost Recon Breakpoint. There are some few statues right here, as well as some other Assassin's Creed, and as well as Watchdog and Valhalla bundle. So they have done a lot of collaborations with Ubisoft. You would think that they would be able to prevent these sort of issues from occurring. Now, with that being said, after the release of the game and with how many players that it has gotten, the game seems to be doing just fine. They recently released a new update called Claws of Awaji, which features a brand new map for players to explore. There are new gears, new skills to upgrade, and new story content as well. There has been some earlier updates, a quality of life updates. It included a uncapped frame rate in cutscenes, specifically for PC. Now, as a outside perspective of this, I don't know why they didn't include this from the beginning, if that would take a lot of resources to do and implement, but as well as a parkour update and a future roadmap, which we see here. The parkour update is scheduled to release on the 28th, and that will include the mentioned parkour update, which features a lot of different new grapples and ways to dynamically engage with the world, specifically for Naui, because she is, in my opinion, probably the focus of this game, with even though the two characters marketed as the main character includes Naui and Yasuke, the game is built around Naui, in my opinion, with the ability to, well, scale buildings and do so in a very fluid and dynamic way. But looking further ahead, there is a third story drop which will expand the game even more. Now, they do mention a second special collaboration, and hopefully it isn't a repeat of the mentioned collaboration with Pure Arts. Now, with that out of the way, we've seen how the game did after its release as well as prior to its release, and I quickly wanted to take a moment and just go through what the ending score of the game turned out to be. And on Metacritic, we have a 81 from the journalists. That is a pretty decent, pretty high scoring actually. It's sitting in the low 80s, and that is generally a good game, a great game actually. General consensus of it from the journalists seems to be that the game does a lot of things right. It's a very good game, but as you can see, the user score is a bit lower, sitting on 6.2. Now, we can't really speculate how or what ended up being the deciding factor for players that played it, because this number can also entail a lot of review bombing or anything kind of negative sentiment towards the game. So in general, it's sitting at a high scoring. Now, the next game I wanted to cover is called Clair Obscure Expedition 33. Some of you might have heard of this game. For those of you that haven't, might as well just be living under a rock, because this game, when it initially released earlier this year, was a massive success and it caught many people by surprise. The quality of the game was incredible, and what made it even more appealing was the fact that it was made by a team consisting of technically 33, and what I mean by that is apparently the 33rd member of the dev team was a dog, which makes it even more comedic. The fact that it's 33 and not 32 devs that worked on this game. But I wanted to go through this game because it was not a definite contender for Game of the Year before it was released. Many people were speculating that this game had potential, as well as many of former devs were from Ubisoft. Now, as a quick note, I just wanted to go over what the game is, what kind of genre it is. It is a turn-based game, so some of it might be less appealing to some people. It is considered a more niche game by the fact that not a lot of people are into the turn-based games. It had a unique world building and storytelling as well, set in a dystopian or different kind of Paris setting, and by that I mean it takes place in France, of course, so there's a lot of hints or obvious clues to the setting, as well as the characters. The characters are three-dimensional. There's a lot of struggles with the characters. That's the feeling that you get. There's a lot of things that the characters are dealing with that people can relate to, as well as the obvious appealing factor from the game is that it was $50 at release, so it is on the cheaper side compared to some of the other games, but that is also explained in the way that this is a AA game rather than a AAA game, which are releasing at a price tag of astoundingly $70 and would be going up to $80. But I do wanted to go through this game. Now, this article that I found goes over some of the things that, in the perspective of the creative director, is what made the game even more appealing and in a way helped them, the dev team, focus on creating the game. And it's very interesting because this explains a lot of their vision for the game, as well as some people might see a limiting budget as a constraint on creativity and the visions of games. But in this case, in terms of what the creative director thinks, it is the opposite, because he sees it as a helpful tool to help narrow and focus the vision that they have. Now, the article from Games Radar here takes a bit from an interview with Automaton, and they asked him why the creative director doesn't think the team would have wanted unlimited resources, and it's very interesting the things he said, so let's first go over that. I don't think we would have wanted to radically add unnecessary content or change the overall scope of our game. And he continues, I think part of the reason some fans enjoyed that time of that game was how we tried to respect the player's time by not artificially padding out the game time excessively. In some ways, having a limited budget and resources is helpful to narrow down the scope of a title and distill the vision to the core elements that make it great. And maybe having unlimited scope and budget would have made it a less engaging game for our players. Now, this is actually a rather interesting response, because usually what you see in industries that are highly competitive or really in any market that has competition to a certain degree is that when companies make a product that is well received and is very profitable, they want to upscale their studio, they want to hire more people, they want to make everything more efficient by cutting costs and everything that has to do with expanding your company. But in this case, it shows that this company is rather different from the general mindset of an industry. They believe that having a core team, a smaller sized team, is more effective. In a way, I can agree with that, because knowing who you're working with and knowing their different processes and how they work is highly effective. It can create a much better working environment and a much more motivated working environment, making it very much a desired situation to be in. Since that he mentions the financial aspect, it is rather interesting, because having an unlimited amount of budget or money available to develop anything can create a sort of confusion with the opportunity to create whatever you want. You can end up with a lot of loose ends. You lose the focus of what you're trying to make. So in their case, it was actually a rather strengthening thing to have, or in this case, not have. It helped create the game that really took the gaming industry by storm. Now, another article that I wanted to go through is also from Games Radar. This article is on a bit older side. It is from August 2025. This article goes through why Sandful Interactive thinks that they aren't looking into expanding the studio just yet for the visions that they have. Sandful Interactive has said that they believe the team working on Expedition 33 is just the right size, especially for making a full-price turn-based RPG. So don't expect the studio's headcount to swell in the face of the JRPG's colossal success. Now, this is also in line with what I talked about just earlier, and the fact that they aren't looking into expanding their studio is a rather interesting choice. And they continue to add this. The lead programmer Tom says that the current team size is just fine for the sort of games the studio wants to make. What these games the studio wants to make is not clear as of this moment. They could be making another turn-based RPG, but I would expect them to look into different aspects instead of just repeating the games that they make. They continue with, I think that for now I prefer working as a small team. I'm not sure how big an ideal team would be, but when it comes to making a full-price turn-based RPG, I believe that the team we have now is just the right size. Now, I think having the team stay at the size that they are right now is a rather good choice, because they can very quickly get clouded with the success of the game that they just released and think that they have to expand to meet demand that the player base could be putting on them. And I think that it's a rather interesting choice to stay at the size, because it shows that they know what their strengths are. They don't want to add unnecessary drain or options for failure when they know that the team size that they currently have is very effective and they get the job done. As I mentioned earlier, this game is a definite contender for Game of the Year with the amount of success that it has. It is a rather impressive game, and there's twists in the story as well as ending. Now, I don't want to spoil the ending for the people that have yet to experience it, but it is a definite story that people should experience. It is a rather interesting way that story is conveyed. There are surprises along the way. It just goes to show that with enough care from the development side, you can make a rather impactful game. And this also shows that giving developers enough time, giving them the opportunity to do what they think needs to be done for the game is very beneficial for the end product. Now, the next game I wanted to go over is called The Altars. It is a game developed by 11-Bit Studios, where the game is described as a emotional sci-fi game with a unique blend of the survival, adventure, and base building elements. It focuses on one sole survivor called Jan Dolsky on a expedition mission that goes horribly wrong. He loses his crew in a accident, and this game follows this Jan Dolsky character on his mission to return home or to leave the planet. But during his stay on this planet, he decides to clone himself. And what's rather unique in this game is that in cloning himself, he meets all these new different versions of him, taking on different personalities and attributes that are different from himself rather than a straight up one-to-one clone. He clones a version that might look like him appearance-wise, but his personalities are different. Now, you might have heard of this developer called 11-Bit Studios, as I mentioned. They have made other games as well. This isn't their first game, and they've made titles such as Frostpunk. This game is described as a city building survival video game, kind of like City Skyline, and I just quickly wanted to go through what's on their website. As you can see here, there is a lot of different games that they have developed, and the mentioned Frostpunk titles, which especially the first one became a critically acclaimed one, which was very popular. They made a sequel to it as well as a spin-offs to it. They've made other kinds of games as well, so this isn't a completely unknown studio. They have made a lot of different games as well. Now, what's particularly interesting with this studio is that around the release of the Alters game, some accusations started to arise accusing the studio of using AI generated content, and they did respond to these accusations, and I wanted to go through their response as well as troubles that AI would have on studios like these and for future studios. And they made a response on Twitter, or X as it's now called. They respond to this accusation. We've seen a wide range of accusations regarding the use of AI generated content in the Alters, and we feel it's important to clarify our approach and give you more context. AI generated assets were used strictly as temporary work in progress during the development process and in a very limited manner. Our team has always prioritized meaningful, handcrafted storytelling as one of the foundations of our game. Now, this is a very important first piece of the statement as to clarify their usage of the AI, but they continue. During production, an AI-generated text for a graphic asset, which was meant as a piece of background texture, was used by one of our graphical designers as a placeholder. This was never intended to be part of the final release. Unfortunately, due to an internal oversight, the single placeholder text was mistakenly left in the game. We have since conducted a thorough review and confirmed that this was an isolated case and the asset in question is being updated. For transparency, we've included a screenshot to show how and where it appears in the game, and they show it around here, in the back here, and also this AI generated here on the two arrows. Now, they stress that this piece of AI generated text was meant as a placeholder. It is only a temporary solution, and they add a few more details later on in this post, but it boils down to time constraints because of they had the upcoming deadline for the release of this game. Now, it's important to note that while they did have this deadline, and you could ask them why wouldn't they just push this back, it came down to deciding whether or not you would need to push this game back because of how big this piece of content was in terms of the overall opinion of the game. Now, in my own opinion, the piece of texts that they mentioned aren't a big deal for me. I don't think it's a necessary thing that causes delays in the release of the game, so I wouldn't mind it if I came across it in the game, but I think it's nice that they acknowledge it, and for the transparency's sake, giving the opportunity for people to voice their opinion as well as them responding to it and saying it's only a temporary piece and would be replaced with a proper text for future versions of it. Now, they continue with another piece of AI generated content in their game. In addition to that, a few licensed movies that the Alters can watch in the social area of the base were added at the final stage of the development. While those were externally produced, our team was not involved in a creative process, and these required additional last-minute translations. Due to extreme time constraint, we chose to not involve our translation partners and had these videos localized using AI to have them ready on launch. It was always our intention to involve our trusted translation agencies after release as part of our localization hotfix to ensure those texts would be handled with the same care and quality as the rest of the game. That process is now on the way and updated translations are being implemented. Now, this I can see being a bigger problem because because as with the text, you could quickly glance at it and not realize that it might be AI generated, but with the movies it is a bit easier to tell if it's generated using AI models. And this is the same thing because of the time constraint. They didn't have the opportunity to do proper voiceovers or translations, and they also stressed that due to it being made from external partners, there were deadlines that impacted the final release of the game, because when they finally got the product from their external partners, they had to sift through the movies and translate them in-house, and that added another amount of stress on the already stressing deadline approaching. So they resorted to a temporary fix, and they will be adding a proper translated non-AI version of it. Now, with those 3 games out of the way, I quickly wanted to say as a final note on this video that I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'm hoping to create more of these kinds of videos. As I'm still very new to the creation thing, I hope to improve during the processes of this. I am not full-time because I am a full-time student at the moment. I hope you can bear with me on not uploading all the time, as I have other things to take care of as well with university. But in the end, I hope that you enjoyed this overview video of these different games. You might have learned something new about these games that you didn't realize were happening behind the scenes, and I hope these overview be informational about these games and gaming industry in the future. And that's it. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.